history and narrative and not have it be revised, because it has been the fact that we have not come to the forefront um for being committed to the fact that we were a part of the creation of Solon, has left it to be partly co-opt from a lot of different ideas and revisionist history. And a lot of people will even say, um, the Solon flag. What are you talking about? The Solon flag came out in 1967. I'm like, sir or ma'am, you're quite confused. It's the Solon flag. So first of all, Solon in and of itself, it has not been around since 1967. And I think you're confusing it with the Black American Heritage flag, in which we have a whole lot of respect for. As a matter of fact, Solon Dway reached out to um, Melvin's daughter to get appreciation and approval, just to display the fact that we wanted to pretty much infuse it the way we have. So it's, the Solon flag is an ethno national flag. It's part of our. I look at the Black American Heritage flag as our ethnic flag, the American flag as our national flag, and then we got an ethno national flag. It's just all. It's just two two worlds in one with the Solon thing. So I mean, but we are an ethnicity. So I want to make sure that was made clear. What's up, King?
Yeah,
Uh,
I invite all of it because it's funny. Talking to somebody in the thread earlier, and I was telling them, it's funny because as the Black American pride grows and becomes more popular, um, we have more options to express our pride, right? So we don't have to just use the RBG anymore. We have the Juneteenth flag. We have the Gullah flag, if you want to get even more specific. We got the Soulaan flag now, Black American Heritage. And then, the most controversial, which people are starting to take pride in now, was just like you said, the national flag, the American flag, period.
oh yeah,
So the fact that we are evolving into this kind of like more ethnocentric type of era, we have more options. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with like representations of like Pan Africanism.
yeah, absolutely. What's going on, talent? And so, what did you think about? Speaking of the American flag, though, what did you think about Kendrick Lamar's performance at the Super Bowl?
Oh, I mean, I thought it was great. What's funny is it's kind of like one of those. It's one of those artistic things where you watch it the first time and you like, it's sometimes some stuff is like so fresh and so kind of like
Oh yeah,
striking. You watching in the moment. You don't really take it all in that moment. But I watched it. I mean, I enjoyed it, thoroughly the first time. But then I watched it again. I was like, yo, this is probably, I don't know if I'm biased, but this probably definitely my favorite performance so far. I mean, and what's funny, I said this probably about 3-4 years ago. I always felt like if a relevant enough Black American artist shows displays of ethnic pride, I mean it's over from there. So
hmm,
for the way I interpret it, it is kind of like it could be a mockery, it could be a show of pride. It's like perfectly in the middle. So I mean, I think he did a good job as expected to.
absolute. And then all of the subtleties or not so subtleties, having to do with the messaging behind a lot of it as well. I mean, people have been really breaking down what what this means from a metaphorical sense, a symbolic sense, a literal sense of it all. I just seen somebody talk about how, well, first of all, it was in New Orleans, and there's a segment where a man was just hanging on top of a pole while everybody else was at the bottom, and the symbolism of it being of the tarot card of the hanging man, and what that
Yeah, I saw
means.
that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and how that transforms itself is so much within that context. The fact that it was you had Uncle or I said Uncle, but well yeah, he played Uncle Samuel L. Jackson as well. Just trying to, again, as part of this idea to keep us conformed. And that's what I've always talked about. The fact that, this political climate, yeah, people are going to be upset. People are going to be, feel some type of way about it. But at the end of the day, we don't get things done unless we are put in a position to show our strength. And we can't show our strength. We can't win a game unless people are showing their cards. And let's just say a certain political party shows their entire ass and their entire card full display. They have no poker face. So when you have a poker face, you might think that you're fine. You might think that everything's fine, and you're content, and everything's good. And like they say, ignorance is bliss. I don't want to remain stagnant, and I think some people, unfortunately, might like to remain stagnant. Um, and so we're gonna see how this works. We move when pressure's applied, and it might just come you know, with us just moving that needle.
Do you think that that performance? Well, if you had to say, what do you think most of Black America is thinking with that performance? Do you think that they're take? I would, if I had to split it into a dichotomy, I think I would split it between those who saw it as a jab or a mockery of America, or the other side where it's kind of like an unapologetic pride, or not even, maybe not so much as pride as much of America, but just kind of like specific pride, or ownership or claim. So which do you think, or maybe even both, so which do you think most Black people or Black Americans would
Wait,
probably
sum
lean
up the
towards?
last part again. Ownership
I
to
can
claim, and then uh
I kind of split it up. I kind of split it up between two different ideas of two different
okay.
perceptions of that performance, where on one side people are seeing it as kind of like this mockery or jab at America, and then the other side where it might be taken as like claim or ownership or pride, you know what I'm saying, like not so
Oh,
much of
okay.
a
Yeah, yeah.
negative thing. So, or maybe even both.
Right. But that's what I was thinking. What up, Net? I was thinking a little bit of both, to be honest. I was thinking a little bit of both. The display of because Kendrick Lamar has displayed the American flag um multiple times during his performances. So I think he does have a sort of pride that comes along with being a Black American, or just American, that just period. At the end of the day, because him involving the American flag prior didn't involve all this messaging. So he must have some type of attachment to it before we even talk about other subtleties that could be involved as well. But yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
didn't
it
even
is a
think
little bit of
about
both.
that. Yeah, I didn't even
Yeah,
think about that.
yeah, multiple times, multiple times. I think at least three, four times. So yeah, unless he's also did it at concerts too, which I might not be privy of, but yeah, multiple times. So this is somebody who is not shy from using the American flag and showing pride within that. He's also used the talent. What is that flag? You because talent uses a lot. I forget who made it exactly. I'm trying to remember. Is it David?
Oh, the African American flag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the American flag, but it's in red, black, and green. So he's displayed that one in the squabble up. So I'm hoping at some point he definitely uses the Black American Heritage flag, and maybe even the Solon flag. Shit, maybe
Yeah,
even the
that
Solon
that's
flag.
definitely, I definitely would say that's the next level. If someone was to at least use maybe even the Juneteenth one too, or just
Oh yeah,
another ethnic flag. But
yeah,
I think I agree with what you said about the general consensus. I think with us, we have a very special split kind of conscious, where we're able to toggle back and forth logically. You know what I mean? It's kind of like because when you think about it, we've never been afraid to touch that flag. You know what I mean? I
right,
mean,
right,
it's countless artists with it on the album cover, whether it's our own, satire take, or if it's just straight up pride. We've always been able to take ownership when we want to, because it's theirs for theirs for the taking. So yeah, I think I definitely agree. He definitely has some type of ethnic pride.
Absolute. So shout out to Kendrick Lamar and that messaging. I mean, yeah, we're playing a game here. We're playing a game here. But yeah, we at the end of the day, we gotta recognize where we stand and how we can um show our pride and get ahead. Because like he said, it's the right time. You got the wrong person. Because he gonna show his ass. He gonna show through. Turn the TV off. At that point, it's a whole new movement going on. It's a whole new revolution. So yeah, I think Kendrick was the right person. You know, he might not agree. Well, I get what he's saying. I'm just joking. But he was absolutely the right person. I only say that because some people were, still maybe a little bit salty about Lil Wayne not performing. Respect to Lil Wayne. I'm a big Lil Wayne fan, but Lil Wayne got his he not
Yeah, Little Wayne. You know, I'll say this, like you said, Little Wayne. He's a legend by now, especially for certain age groups. But I think in this climate,
you're right.
I'm glad to see that music is hopefully at least going back into an era where it's more than just leisure. You know what I mean? Like it's time to use these moments in these in the music to really say something. So I feel like Kendrick is in the right place at the right time because his own personal message really aligns with our message too, right? When it comes into this ethnic awakening. So definitely right on time.
Right. And however you feel politically, but at the end of the day, I feel like Lil Wayne might have fanboyed a little bit for the president, and yeah, we don't need to make him an idol. I don't, Anyway, let's move on to Essence real quick. So Essence has made quite a stir on social media, in particular on the X or Twitter, and on their YouTube because they did a short film on it's called The Love Letter to New Orleans. Essentially, um the video in question was talking about trying to show, I guess, appreciation for New Orleans, but it was from a perspective of foreigners. And the thing that got people stirred up is the fact that they called New Orleans a what was it, a trans Caribbean.
If I'm not mistaken, they called it the northernmost Caribbean city and
mm,
or the most African city in America.
mm. Yeah. And so, yeah, that was a little crazy for quite a few people, even for some Caribbeans. I've seen you Caribbeans say, I never even heard of that. Why would you say that? But
Yeah, I've never heard of that. One thing I have heard of though, and I haven't heard in a long time, I have heard a couple of people call it or say they've heard people refer to it as the most un-American city inside America. And I think
mm,
that was kind of like just alluding to the. I mean, there is a unique culture, definitely, but it's only found here. So to label it anything else as if what makes New Orleans great is also exclusive to those places they attaching it to is that I mean it's just totally out of whack. Like I mean, come on.
and the thing is that yes, it is unique. Absolutely, it is unique. There's certain aspects of the culture down there you don't really find anywhere else like that to that degree and to that magnitude. But the thing is that that doesn't mean that the culture wasn't elsewhere, because guess what? I'm a descendant of Creoles. My grandmother's father was Creole. He didn't bring that New Orleans culture over here like that. He didn't bring all um, that showmanship, or a lot of a lot of that particular culture just wasn't brought up in my particular family. The only thing he brought up to us was pretty much just the food, and that was just how to cook gumbo correctly. Um,
Well, you know what's funny is like, and I'll try to make it quick, but I kind of want to just dive into this thing we call cultural retention.
right.
So when we talk about Black American culture in particular, I think people really don't understand, unless you are a Black American yourself, how it feels to have everyone in the world. This isn't just like a Black race thing. This is like many other ethnic groups. They have their hands on our culture and history. Like it just is what it is. So in an attempt to kind of like keep myself from going crazy about this whole cultural retention thing, I tried to really look it up and see how can I really quantify what cultural retention is. So basically, cultural retention is the process of maintaining aspects when encountering a new culture, which is typically more dominant, right? So that means I'm a Black American. I cook fried chicken, macaroni and cheese. I listen to R&B. I play basketball. Whatever. I'm
Yeah.
Christian. Like I hit all the Black American marks, right? I moved to Japan. They're not really playing basketball like that, right? So I can't retain that cultural aspect. The foods, they don't really sell some of the stuff that I make, so I have to change up the recipes. I have to cook it a different way, or I become acclimated to the food that's there. That's another cultural retention loss. You know what I mean? So when cultural retention only happens when that practice survives the new environment, right? But in order to really call it cultural retention or transference, you have to first establish what that original culture is. So when we talk about, logically speaking, when we talk about the New Orleans culture, right, and we say it has a Haitian influence, it has a French influence, it has a an African influence. I even saw one today. It has a Belizean influence now. I need people to start to in order to maintain the integrity and the essence of New Orleans culture. I think it's our duty to now force people to show us what are the material contributions that were exclusive and original to the places that they come from, and show how they were brought into New Orleans culture, right? One example I saw today, they said, you can't tell me that New Orleans is not Caribbean because they play pity pat just like they do in Belize. Well, let's do a quick short history on Pity Pat, which is a card game. The connection is that they both were Spanish territories, and Pity Pat derives from Spanish card games that was brought by the Spanish. So it's not that New Orleans has a Belizean influence when it
Pity
comes
pat
to
isn't even unique to New Orleans, to be honest, either.
exactly, and that's
You know.
another thing. It's like, so they played in Detroit too. So what you're saying, that's
Right.
Belizean? Like, come on. And the answer to that is I'm always trying to stay a step ahead, because I'm actually motivated to protect the integrity of it. So I already know that the next question, the next statement is, well, it's particular to that history because of the history. Well, no, that still doesn't make the connection like this spiritual thing, nor does it mean that it was in Belize first or anything. What people don't stop to realize is, and it's a little bit disrespectful, that all these cultures were forming around the same time. So there weren't these well established, fully solidified cultural aspects that were then brought to New Orleans. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly is uniquely Haitian. Like the things that we know Haiti for right now, those weren't even in existence at the time that they would have had that influx. You know what I mean? It's just so many holes. So um, I just wanted to do a quick little explanation on that with cultural retention, because I think people don't realize, in order to claim that, you have to first establish something distinct, and then in order to be identified in the culture that claims to retain it.
Well, yes, absolutely, and Well, the other argument would be is that I think that cultural tension is maintained when it's more than one person, is or ideally a group, especially a large group of people that can bring um, a maintenance of the culture. So, since my grandmother's father, he was up here by himself, he wasn't going to retain much if he's just a single person that decided to move up. So in that regard, I understand that. But if there was like more of a group of him and maybe some other people from New Orleans that came up as well that he knew of, and maintain a connection to, I could see that cultural retention maintaining or growing elsewhere as well. But that wasn't the case for me, and maybe it just wasn't the case elsewhere as well. We don't have no idea exactly why. But then it also goes into, well, a group of Haitians were came over here in groups, right? We have to then just be fair and point that out. They were brought here in groups. The only problem is that they were brought here in groups only under the exception that they would be enslaved in the same chattel slavery as us.
And
There,
what and just to be clear too, though that was just those who were, I guess, fit the requirement to be considered so, right? But if I'm not mistaken, there were people who came from Haiti after the revolution who were able to immerse themselves in the white society too, right?
they did say that more of some of the mulattoes were to some degree would be able to do that, but at the same time, mulattoes were regarded as slaves just as much as anybody else. So I don't really see how that would be any different. On top of the fact that Haitians were relentlessly banned in America, and I have the quotes right here, some of them. The colony's officials responding to uprising on the island banned the entry of enslaved Saint Haitians, basically in 1763. Another one in 1800, Louisiana agreed that these Saint Domingos, basically, or the Haitians, blacks would be barred from entry. And there's about at least four or five of mentions of them being completely banned from even entering the United States. So the argument is that there's somehow someone was writing in books that 9,000 Haitians came up to America. Um, so then the thing is this then is that, okay, let's just say for argument's sake they came up here, willfully by themselves and without their slave masters, which we already know that's not um, the truth. But let's just go with that, right? They came up here, they somehow were free and they weren't enslaved at that point. Um, the thing is that if you're on the heels of a revolution, why didn't you ignite a war? Because upon arrival, they didn't ignite a war. So with the argument being that they will be free and they were up here to rescue us, which I've heard people have said that, oh, we came up here to rescue y'all, but there was no war in any timeline that you've ignited in Louisiana that brought some type of freedom fighting war over here in America. It just didn't happen. So we have to
Well,
make sure that context is there.
well, and this is why I kind of posed that hypothetical question. Now I've seen sources that have suggested, a couple of sources that have just suggested that of that population, I think that nine to ten
But hold on,
thousand.
hold on. I'm sorry. Let me just because I
Oh,
don't
go
want to
ahead, go
forget
ahead,
it.
go ahead.
Because what that suggests is that you've accepted enslavement over freedom. You came from a literal country in which you got yourself out of slavery, and then you came into a country that's still going through it. On top of the fact that you skipped every other country in between, including Mexico, who abolished slavery a lot longer before us. So we have to make sure that we're being cognizant of exactly what's going on here, and it's nothing more than just ethnocide, in which was pointed out. Go ahead, Jubilee.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because that's what I was going to go to when you logically think about, because I think people just end up glossing over history in order just to claim our culture or history, right? Because it's like that's the motivation. The motivation is to, no matter what, attach that Black American history. It don't matter if Haiti wasn't even a country at that time. Haitians came there. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
That's
right.
one point. The second point is, like you just said, which is a great point. Um, if you had just freed yourselves from restriction, why would you then leave the land you just fought for and won? And that's why I posed the question:
Hmm.
is it possible that most of them were white? I've seen a couple of sources that suggested about a third of them were what would be considered what we consider white,
Right.
racially white,
Yeah.
which would make sense because, like you said,
Yeah.
why would you? And then, if they had kicked all the quote unquote French or white or mulattoes off the islands, it would only make sense they would come to the most racist haven in the world at the time, United States. So,
Not only that, the closest thing outside of France to get to, which will be right here in Louisiana in America. They would come right here before
right,
they
it's
go to France
France. Right, exactly, exactly.
because it's a lot more cost efficient,
So then,
time
so
consuming. It saves your life a whole lot more. You have to go through those waters. You might be risking. It's high risk. Go ahead, Jubilee.
no, no, my bad. I was getting excited because I'm just thinking, like, when we started to get into who these people were and who they were in the world at this time. These people who were coming from this island to New Orleans at this time in the world. Who were they? How did they live? How did they look? How did they fit into society once they got here, right? That will inform the culture that they brought with them. So when we think about, like I mentioned earlier, when we think about this, they say this quote unquote Haitian connection. All they're using is the fact that both of them were, all they have to lean on rather is the fact that they were both French colonies, and the
Hmm.
fact that there was a large influx of quote unquote Haitians that came. Between those two things doesn't equate to modern day Haitians that we know influencing New Orleans, if that makes sense. Like, again, what do we know as the original unique Haitian culture that we can definitely pick out in New Orleans? And one of the things people love to say is the architecture. Look at the shotgun houses, right? Well, houses that is indicative of presence, but that still is not enough to blanket the New Orleans culture as Haitian or anything other than New Orleans. So I don't know, when we think about this whole cultural retention thing, it's kind of crazy because, like I just explained earlier, if I move to another country, it'll be hard for me to retain my culture as it is. So imagine being a slave where you had to go through what they call it natal alienation, completely cut off. Everything that's of you at that point is completely you. So it's really interesting. Is I think the deeper conversation is, why do we why do we tend to allocate our creations and ingenuity by way of circumstance to Africa simply because the ancestors came from that place? That's interesting when you think about it.
Yeah, and if I didn't make that clear, Essence was essentially community noted on Twitter. So following that post, um, let me just read it verbatim. Actually, um, so it says. This is considered erasure or ethnocide. New Orleans is profoundly Black American at its roots, not Caribbean or African. New Orleans, just like every other city with a predominant Black American culture, experienced an ethnogenesis centuries ago. This I don't know who this person I don't know who this person is who was hired by Twitter to do community notes, but she definitely has been listening to our spaces, grassroots. She definitely he or she is definitely very much educated on what we've been talking about in these spaces, in these rooms, and in the media and the press. So she's highly likely to be of FBA, Solon, Freeman, our core ethnic group. So we need to at
Yeah,
least point that out.
and I'm glad you brought that up because I wouldn't have even thought about it. So I just found out, if you didn't already know, that the way you report community notes. I don't know if you ever have, but when you see a tweet that is obviously a lie, and
Hmm.
you hit the three dots, there's an option to request a community note.
Mm.
And what's interesting is you provide a link to another tweet to that actually combats that tweet. So
Okay.
what you do is, all of it, and this is for the room, for all of us to start doing. We hit hard in this space. So whenever we see something that is obviously, dishonest, revisionist history or whatever, if we see a reply, if we see a reply to that counters it really good, if we see a reply that we think like hits it right on the nail, hit request the community note and copy the link to that tweet and submit that tweet. Because what I think they do is, what may have happened with that Essence one, somebody submitted another tweet that countered that. The people who all have access to the agents or whatever you call them, who revise the community notes, they see it, they look at the AI analysis of it, they fact check it, they see if it aligns, and then if they decide a community note goes there, it goes. If someone wants to dispute it, they'll dispute it, so on and so forth. So yeah, just to put that out there, when we we go hard at some of these people when it comes to our ethnicity, as we should, and we hit them with hard facts, straight to the point. So we got to start using it to our advantage. We could have this is our way of seeping into the media, because when I saw that, I thought that was awesome. Like, we finally, making it to public consciousness when it comes to that. So yeah, just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, big ups to that community. No, but to be honest though, let me be clear, because when I went to go look at who corrected Essence for the community note, she got a lot of black, stuff defending us, particularly Solon. So I mean, I think she might just be. She might just be. I don't, unless she is just picking up. I don't know. I don't know how it really works. I'm just saying that when you look at her track record, she defended our Black National Anthem. She defended the Essence thing. She defended something to do with our DNA, which I always harp on. Is this particular guy who keeps talking about us and our genetic makeup. The thing is that when it comes to our genetics, let me be clear. Do we have African genetics? Absolutely. The thing is this though. They are playing games with our genes, and they've admitted to it. If you look hard enough, number one, they are using self-reported African Americans. That can be anybody. We had so much immigration over here that can be anybody. Number one. So that already messes up a lot of things. Number two, they are inferring and compartmentalizing African genetics alone. And they are removing and isolating themselves away from any other complex genetic admixture that could also be present as well. So if you're inferring that and you're excluding, you're not telling the full story of the average Black American. And then you look at the sample size. The sample size is pathetic. It was 4 compared to 121. 4 Black American populations in compared to 121 African. So how is that just? That's not scientifically just. And it builds a bias. That's called genetic bias. And so we can't be clear about who we are when you're doing genetic biases like that. Go ahead, Jubilee.
Oh my bad. I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to
Oh, oh,
raise
oh.
my hand actually.
No, you good. So yeah, there's a lot of genetic bias going on. So we have to be clear about what these studies are telling us. And I didn't read what her note said particularly, but you know, I just needed to make sure that was clear as well. And since we're on the topic of Haitians, I have to tackle this lie about Chicago because it is a lie. Um, so you know the story though, Jubilee, right? About Haitians in Chicago.
Yep. I what's so funny is, I mean, it's almost like the Twilight Zone when it comes to this story, because I feel like I done did my own research and deep dive on it at least three times by now, and still have arrived at the conclusion that is not confirmed. But yeah,
Well,
definitely
yeah,
know what's
and
going on.
this is the thing too. Um, so come to find out, I've done some research on it and I posted it. So I'm gonna read what I found and I'm gonna sum it up. So basically, Louisiana was part of a bigger macro land that encompassed more than just what we know as Louisiana. So think of it like Ethiopia over in Africa, and they called large parts of Africa Ethiopia at one point, or Ethiopia. Same thing with Louisiana. Louisiana wasn't just Louisiana, it was other parts of Kentucky and Oklahoma. It went all the way up north to Missouri. So let's be clear. Um, so yeah, the French owned those territories. Come to find out, those were at least in that particular landscape of where Chicago is. That is where the Ojibwe Indian Americans were, or the Ojibwe Soulaan were. They were simply in French territory, so a lot of them spoke French. A lot of them were fur traders in that regard. So come to find out, the myth came from a Haitian man, of course, and his name was Joseph Jameer, or Jeremy. I'm sorry, Joseph Jeremy in 1951, and they just so happened to continue the lie going forward at that point, because there is no confirmation that he would have been Haitian. It's just French speaking Negroes, and they just attributed it to Haitians because they also speak French. Thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, just as I thought. And and not to get too deep here, but what this really comes down to is is just having the courage to question narratives and story and history, whatever's out there. Because when I thought about it, because I've heard this for a while now. I can't remember when I first heard it, but I've heard it for some time now. And every time I've looked it up, it's been pretty vague. And I just don't understand justifying calling someone another nationality, whatever the case is, um, when all the history that anyone has on them only occurred here in the United States. Isn't that
Mm-hmm.
crazy when you think about it?
Yep.
Like, just think about
Yep.
it. Like, there's literally no history, any accounts of him being anywhere else. Of course,
Right.
we don't know about his birth date and all that stuff, but there are accounts of him at least being here on this soil. There's no accounts of him being anywhere else. But somehow, on the strength of his name, he is attributed to an entirely other country. And
Right.
this is what we really got to get some media out there about. Not that it's just gonna save the day, but we got to get these outlets to document some of this very specific ethnocidal stuff that's happening to us, because I
Mm.
could guarantee you no other ethnicity, or country, would allow one of their greats or their history to be allocated to anything outside of itself. I mean, like I always bring up this example, like freaking Caesar salad comes from Mexico, created by an Italian man because he was trying to create a salad that he used to make in Italy. But it's
Mm,
known as a Mexican dish because it happened there. So
mm,
on it, it's something very kind of anti-black that people rush to not only one give away our history and legacy, but two accept it with open arms. Like we just heard that we like what you know. It's like I got to iterate it again. Like we have a history about a man in Chicago. All his history is here, right here in America. But on the simple fact of his name, he's
yeah.
allocated to Haiti. They wouldn't do that to anyone else but us. So it's much deeper than just you know a name or two.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the history that was lost is that I guess we forget that the French had a lot more territory than just that particular region that we call Louisiana today, and that got lost, and somehow he was able to finesse his way in to say that, hey, I'm a part of this history, this legacy. And my thing is this though too though because apparently, they hop skipped over to Cuba as well. Uh, what is your history in Cuba? What is your legacy in Cuba? What did you do in Cuba exactly? I mean, no one ever hears about it. We only ever hear about what you did over here in America. So I want to know what you did in Cuba. I want to know what you did maybe any other place. Why is it that everybody's just doing a straight line straight to America and skipping everything else?
And you know it something about it kind of suggests that we aren't enough, right? It's almost as if it's an echo of the very harsh, hardcore statement of y'all didn't build anything, you don't have anything, you're not
Mm.
from anywhere. All of that, all of these claims on our history and legacy and culture leads up to that one statement: you don't have anything. So, and, you know, if you don't have anything to represent your presence, that means you was never there. So it's kind of like we keep writing our name on the wall. Black Americans was here, and they keep trying to like draw other stuff around it, and you know what I'm saying. So it's a conversation that needs
Yeah,
to
you
be
see the
had.
posts now. You got Diane Yap. You got other people going around. All these old white suspected white supremacists going around saying, um, I think it was who was it that put out a tweet and saying we built America. It was I know her very well. I can't believe I'm forgetting her name.
She the Japanese chick who said we were just field equipment or something like that. She
No,
said
but it was a response to a black woman, but I can't remember her name right now. I'm flubbing.
Nina Turner.
Yeah, Nina Turner.
Yeah,
Yeah, Diane Yap, and of course a lot of them. They want to play this game that we didn't build anything. None of that happened. But the thing is this: you can't go around Diane Yap pretending you're so intellectually superior to everybody else and then not know basic history. You can't do it. You can't have it both ways like that. You gotta stand on one. Either you
exactly.
smart as shit or you just dumb as hell.
And you see what's funny is, so what people don't realize is that's what I was kind of trying to put down when I said these narratives of other people of outside cultures coming in to quote unquote help us or stimulate us or whatever you want to call it. It that right there is such an echo of this isn't your land, you don't have anything. Because I see people today like they're like, well, there's nothing wrong in saying it's a Northern Caribbean city. That doesn't take away the credit from Black Americans and blah 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 blah. And it's like, yes, it does. Like it is what it is. Like that's what it comes down to. Like call why else would you call us anything else than what it is? Because it's not solely what you're calling it. So it's not even mostly what you're calling it. You know what I mean?
No,
So
no, it is ethnocide. It absolutely is ethnocide, and you can't pretend it's not ethnocide because when you bring up the facts, you were brought here largely as slaves, and I agree that most of the so-called Haitians that came over here were actually white. The ones that were actually black came here in chains. You came here as generational slaves. Slaves can't really bring culture like that. We're born into it. So and like us, for example, our culture, we made a large portion of our culture, but also it was already here as well. So we have a claim for something that was already here and things that we've also constructed as well. You coming in, new body, um, in chains, what are you really bringing at that point? On top of the fact that whenever anyone has a war, who are the main refugees? Women and children. Women and children ain't bringing that type of culture over here to retain. Let's be clear, especially if you enslaved.
well, they go through great lengths, and this is why we got to get some type of media on this stuff, because this happens to no one else. No one else would they go as far as to say the slaves brought okra and rice in their hair over here. Have you heard that one? They've gone as far as to say the slaves is bringing the food the food in their hair.
Hmm.
That's how they got the cultural transfer. Like, come on, like they weren't making a grocery list or anything. Like, it's and even if so, there are so many other foods. It's not our shit is not synonymous with anything but our shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy what people go through just to minimize our influence on our shit.